thank you everyone for connecting today and to spend this evening talking about a little bit of project controls and how we can use data analytics to help us in our journey. So let me just quickly share my screen so we can start with the presentation. I promise I'm not going to take more than 45 minutes to present today. The title of this is that data-driven project controls in action, a new era is upon us. Just to introduce myself, my name is Giancarlo Duran, and I'm a certified data analyst by Microsoft. I'm usually, my expertise is on the use of project controls together with tools such as Power BI and Primavera P6 for the planning aspects of things. Currently working as a digital planning and reporting manager for the TRU West Alliance, that is the TransPennine route upgrade. And I have a couple of professional certifications in the realm of project controls, such as cost professional, earned value professional, PMP from the PMI, and P6 certified, especially by Oracle as well. And I've been working a little bit along the AAC board of directors between 2017 and 2019, working as a regional director for Latin America, right? So now, if we want to discuss a little bit about the topic today, it's basically, for me, it's always important to start with the need. What are the needs that we want to cover, that we want to solve, right? And for us, it comes back to our project. Our project is the TransPennine route upgrade. So this is a multi-billion-pound upgrade of the rail infrastructure connecting York to Manchester, including Huddersfield and Leeds. And probably one of the biggest challenges that we have is that TRU West is an alliance, is comprised by many different parties. Among them, we have AMI, ARU, BAM Nuttall, and all these companies, they work a lot together, but they have their own policies, their own procedures in terms of project controls and in terms of execution itself. So for this presentation, we want to focus on one of the execution phases that we had the last year. It was the one of the blockades. It was a 16-day blockade in the summer of 2021. That corresponds to a project that we have designated as W1, and it's Manchester, Victoria. And the thing is that this was one of the kind of major milestones for the Alliance to start during the execution phase. And we want to prove ourselves that we could provide a lot of value from the project controls department, and how we can help the people delivering the job to get faster insights, and they could rely on the data they were looking at any point in time. And most importantly, because these possessions blockades, they are kind of 24/7 non-stop working periods that people actually need to focus a lot of them, because there are many things that are relying on the success of it. Like, for example, the train operators, that they will need to resume their works once the possession is over, you know? So for those of you that haven't heard about possession or blockade before, this we call possession or blockade in the rail industry when a section of the railway is removed from operational service. And we generally do that for maintenance or for engineering works when we want to upgrade, we want to build new things, or kind of refurbish some of the facilities we have in that section of the line, right? And Network Rail, they have their own specific standard for the planning and management of these possessions, and they call them delivering works within possessions, DWWP, right? And as part of this process, there is a really specific and unique reporting requirement that we need to provide both to our sponsor, in this case, Network Rail, but also towards the train operators, that they need to know what is happening throughout this this possession time and if they are going to be able to resume their activities as soon as we complete this. So it's quite important to know that everything's going on plan. On if something happens, what are the measures and what's going to be the consequences of that, and how we can prevent any kind of emergencies in that regard. You know, so that is a possession, and we were working towards our first blockade for the Trans-Pennine route upgrade. So this is the W1 project, summer blockade. It was basically, it consisted on 10 stages. That's how we divided, we split up the job, mainly focus areas of the section where the main works were to happen. And those 10 stages, they kind of translated in this number of activities. Mainly we have to put in place track renewals, about 3 kilometers of track renewals. We had to do 2 major underbridge reconstructions in Danzig Strait, Queens Road, 2 major underbridge strengthening works at Bromley Street and Oldham Road. We had only 16 days to accomplish all that. We have to put new signal bases, new signals along the route. So it was a massive job to do and a very tight deadline to accomplish all this. So people were really trying to do their best just to achieve the outputs of this blockade. So the approach we wanted to take was mainly focused on 4 objectives. And for that, one of them was to reduce the number of people that were involved in the communication process. So we want to reduce the opportunity for miscommunication. Generally, when we have done this in the past, there are so many people involved in what reports go out, who is inputting, feeding into these reports. And this usually tended to create this miscommunication. Some people will be looking at some sort of reports while other people will be looking at something totally different, you know? So that was kind of a really endangering all this process. So we want to minimize, reduce, avoid that. Then another objective was the collation of all the information in one single place. So we wanted all the data to be gathered in the same format, in the same structure, and we didn't want to use spreadsheets for that, because spreadsheets just opens the door for all that lack of standardization and all that mess that we usually see on our daily basis in our projects. So we want to reduce that. So we want to put in place a single source of truth. And I know you have heard this several times about this topic, this buzzword about one single source of truth. But that was effectively what we want to achieve. We want to have one set of data in one single place, and everyone who were involved to get just the same message all across, you know. And obviously, behind the scenes, what we wanted to put in place to achieve all that was to automate this reporting sequence. This reporting process has to be done automatically without the kind of the manipulation of third parties, or without the manual manipulation of data. So we want to exploit all the digital tools we have available at that time, and we want to produce the same quality of the reports every single day of our possession, right? So we start working in that direction, and if we just kind of just to try to approach this, we want to see what not to do, right? So what was that our past experience on this in our different projects or in our different companies? And the traditional cycle we usually saw happening was kind of this part of the understanding the problem. And this picture depicts that pretty well, you know, because if you see on the screen is basically as a project controller, you will find people working with Primavera P6, but only the planner or the scheduler will get access to this, right? And if he or she want to communicate that to the rest of the project team, the project manager or the team members who don't have access to PCs, usually what they tend to do is to translate the message. How do they translate that? They will mainly will try to get this data, they get this information and place that into a spreadsheet, right? Exactly what you see in the big monitor behind the laptop. And they will put that, they will try to do some copy paste, they will try to export the data into Excel. They will spend a lot of time trying to create look ahead, trying to see what's been done, what's an actual, what's the forecast, how is that changing over time. And that is just taking so long that in this type of context where you have 16 days of works and everything is so critical, you can just not afford that. Yeah? You cannot afford working with the spreadsheets in this way. So this was part of the problem. We knew that if we were to do something like this, we will fail miserably during this blockade. So we want to see a different approach. So everything I've said so far in terms of the traditional cycle can be summarized into this diagram, where this is a kind of a process map, and this is taken from the Total Cost Management Framework from AAC International. And what this tells us is basically, whenever you get the data input of actuals, whether it is the actual man hours, the actual progress, what you want to do is to measure the performance, track the resources, status the schedule, and with all that information, you want to assess, review, and finally, once data is validated and everyone is agreed on the results, you can just report the progress and the performance. And traditionally, we have done that in the past using WhatsApp calls, using paper sheets, manually copying those entries into a spreadsheet, and from the spreadsheet trying to make a sense of this data. Potentially, you will create some pivot tables, you will use some macros to accelerate that process, and finally, you will end up reporting and communicating that again in a spreadsheet, right? And you will be collecting all that information from different tools, from SAP, from your cost management tools, from your planning and scheduling tools, Microsoft Project, Primavera P6, and all that. So traditionally, this is what has been happening in the past. So the approach we want to take for this one was a bit different. So we just want to leverage on the tools we had access to without kind of going out to the market and purchasing new tools and things like that. We knew that we as an alliance, and among all the different parties involved and all the different companies, we were already using Microsoft Office 365. We were using Teams to do the video calls, to communicate, to have the meetings. We were using a lot of SharePoint at the time, just to store our documentation. So we were already involved with Office 365. And then that's when we decided, okay, if we want to do this ourselves, DIY, Power Platform could be one of the potential solutions to accomplish this. And that's when we start looking at the Power Platform and what we can achieve from it. And for those who are new to the Power Platform from Microsoft, it's just a low-code platform, business application that enables the different project teams to create and deploy tailored business apps, reports, and workflows. And that's when these different tools, these different apps, they can work really well together. So most of you probably have heard about Power BI. We use Power BI to bring some business intelligence into the data we generally collect. But when we add to that, we add the use of Power Apps. So we start creating and customizing our own apps for our needs. That gives us more flexibility, you see, compared to just purchasing an app from the market. There are out there really good apps as well. I'm not going to say there is no solution out there. There are good solutions out there, but sometimes either it's too complex to get logistics in time and to purchase the right app and doing all the research and the due diligence to get the right one that will fit your needs. Or it just is very complex to get people to use them as quickly as you need them. So Power Apps within the Microsoft Office 365 is a really, really good solution, as this doesn't require to be an expert on programming or coding to create your own apps. You have templates. You can just create Power Apps from scratch just by using a template, and it's quite quickly. So when I started using Power Apps, for example, about 3 years ago, I didn't know a thing, and I was just looking at some YouTube videos and building from there. It's amazing how quickly you can get your hands on these type of solutions, just because you can start from templates. It's really amazing. And then the other application is Microsoft Flow, formerly known as Flow, but nowadays is called Power Automate. And you can create so many workflows within Power Automate, and that will allow you to kind of streamline every single day-to-day process you can think of, from saving the attachments that you get on an email up to printing your own Power BI reports on PDF automatically, just by selecting, but by assigning some triggers on your Power Automate workflow. So it's really, really powerful what you can get off the back of that, using these apps all together, right? And they rely on the Dataverse, formerly known as CDS, Common Data Environment. The Dataverse is just kind of a place where you can store your data, right? And there was a topic there in the survey at the beginning about Dataverse and SharePoint. So Dataverse is just, let's say, like a more powerful way to connect and collect your data. Probably, I would say the difference between using SharePoint and kind of store your files or your list on SharePoint is that it's not a database itself, whereas the Dataverse, it can work as a database, and you can plug your Power BI reports to a Dataverse in a live format, so you can use direct queries from Power BI to Dataverse. And that's not the case when you connect Power BI to SharePoint, but we can talk more about that in the upcoming slides. So we decided that Power Platform could be a really good solution to overcome all these challenges we have seen in the past for live reporting. So what we said, it was the traditional cycle and how we collect the data using spreadsheets or using WhatsApp calls and all that, and then communicating through spreadsheets again. We could kind of turn into a different diagram where we could start from one of the tools we were using at the time. In this case was P6 for the planning and scheduling, right? And from P6, we will build up our baseline. So the master plan for these possession blockades. Obviously, we want to go in a very detailed way, hour by hour program, so we know exactly what's going to happen in this 16-day time frame, and that will become our baseline. And the way we will use that is that we will export our XCRs. So XCRs will be the means of communication between our tool, P6, and our reporting for the baseline terms. So once the baseline is ready, I can export the XCR and I can drop that into a folder. And from that folder, I can show what are the planned values in my report, right? So planned values will come directly from P6, but then how we collect the actual data, we will use a Power Platform and we will use Power Apps to do so. So once the baseline is ready, we want to upload that data again into our apps because we want people to get connected, sign into the Power App, and they can mark what has been done on site, you know? So from the P6, we will start by storing this data, the baseline value, plan dates, into our SharePoint list. And from that SharePoint list, it's really, really easy to create your first Power App. So you can create a Power App using the data from P6 as your baseline again. And then we will combine that using Microsoft Forms, just because we want also to add some commentary on our reports, because we thought commentary was also important to kind of describe what was the situation of the works, if something was delayed, what happened, who is responsible, what are the actions we are taking in terms of recovery that, and what do people want to focus on in front, you know? And having all that data collected using apps on the phone, on your desktop, then we will use Power Automate to trigger this workflow. So every time someone pops in new information through the forms or new information through Power Apps, I can use Power Automate to bring that data into Power BI, into my Power BI report. And even if I want to print a PDF version of that Power BI report, I can use my Power Automate to do that for me instead of myself manually opening Power BI and printing that out in PDF. And we actually use PDF at some point because all the school people, where they want to still see the frozen version of that report in a PDF. That was what they want to see. But at the same time, we decided to, in order to communicate this, and as was part of the objectives I mentioned before, we want to have that one single place where everyone could access the one single source of truth. So for us, that was meant to be done in Microsoft Teams. So we were using Teams already. We were doing all the video calls through Teams. So we just thought, okay, it is the best place for us to allocate our reports so they can have access, live access to the latest status of our reports. So that was kind of what we saw was going to be the workflow from the data, from the moment we generate our baseline, and then when we start the execution and when we start monitoring and controlling this, how we will collect the data from site. And as you see here, we didn't use spreadsheets at all in this workflow. If I want to start showing what we did, actually, I wanted to start by depicting the key outputs. So starting from the end, starting from the results, you can see that for this summer blockade, we have this very detailed hour-by-hour program. So there were about 1,500 activities to track. And what we accomplished through this 16 days blockade was that 78% of the activities were completed ahead of plan, and that was a massive achievement. We haven't seen something like that in the past, so for us it was a really, really good indicator that the way we were kind of informing, communicating, distributing this was helping the team to be more, to acknowledge more what they were supposed to do and deliver at every single point in time. So that was a massive achievement. If we want to put also this in different terms, we completed 90% of these activities were completed within 3-hour difference. So yeah, you could have some 1 hour, 2 hours delay compared to the plan, but at 3 hour difference, it was quite good to get almost 90% of the whole program complete on time. And then we didn't have any accident, and that was really good as well, kind of providing this visual information, on-demand reporting. That was helping as well for people to be aware what they were supposed to do every single day. In the end, when we finalized this 16-day blockade, we issue more than 130 automated Power BI reports. So just to put a ratio there were about 8 Power BI reports we submitted every single day. And that is crazy, really, because if I go back to my regular procedures before I was using Power Platform, I could say like I could barely cope with issuing one report per month for my monthly progress update. So having these figures, 8 reports a day, it was quite impressive to get, and those were all automated. So no one was clicking anything. They were just being issuing. Obviously, there were some procedures behind the scenes to validate that data, to make sure the data was coming out in the right way, and it was not nonsense. It was not nonsense. So that was kind of some rules and procedures we put together to make that to make sure of that. And from all those 130 reports, we delivered 98% on time. So kind of the frequency we were issuing reports was about every 4 hours, every single 24/7, every single day. So the only time where we couldn't issue the report on time, it was at midnight, and it was all related to some glitches we had with the system, because at midnight, all the Power BI platform and the auto refresh feature we have in there, it will kind of do an auto refresh for the whole suite of reports that you have in your Power BI. So it was a massive number of reports beside the possession we were running that got updated at midnight. So that kind of hindered our production of reporting every single midnight. But in the end, it was taking just a little bit longer. And if we were supposed to submit our report at midnight, it was submitted at, I don't know, 12:05 or something like that. So we're kind of 5 to 10 minutes delay in issuing these reports, but that was negligent compared to the massive achievement we've done for the 130 reports. And finally, we completed the whole possession, the whole blockade. We completed that 3 hours ahead of the master plan. So that was an amazing achievement. The train operators were really happy with the information they got. They knew at every single moment what to expect. If there were going to be any delays, they would knew it. So that was really good in terms of ourselves as an alliance, how we managed the possession and the blockade. So those were kind of the overall figures we got by using this system, but probably we want to know more about what was the system itself. And this is what we call our collaboration hub. And this was a mix of kind of the use of software, in this case, a Power Platform, but at the same time using some hardware, a facility that we call a collaboration hub. Okay, and main objective of having a complete kind of room for all our data analytics was to help and improve the collaboration and communication among the team members. So live data was streamed from the construction side into the collaboration hub every single minute. And this hub was organized in 3 different aspects. So the first aspect, we were using these mounting walls and 3 of them were focused on live data feed. So all the data that people on site were feeding into the reporting system through Power Apps, and how that will land automatically into our Power BI reports. Those were this part of the collaboration hub. So we have the Power Apps, we have the Power BI report. So every time one person on site were manually assigning the data entry, what they have accomplished, what time they accomplished, the man hours they spent, it will pop up automatically in our Power BI report. Then the second section of this was another 3 displays where we were showing the live time lapse of what was happening outside. And we will show that on this side of the room. And finally, we'll have 3 displays walls for the beam cave. Mainly the main focus was on the 4D planning. We were using that for reviews and briefings of the people on site. That would help understanding of the works for the day, and also will help to assure health and safety indicators for that. So that was kind of the whole collaboration hub. And if we want to drill down in each of these aspects in a bit of more detail, if we go for the first one, the live reporting, for example, this is what any user in the collaboration hub will be looking at. So if I will be sitting there, I will have my access to my Microsoft Teams. I would be able to see what is the status of the project performance by looking at how many milestones we need to achieve by now, and what is the schedule status, and all that will be displayed using Power BI reports embedded on Microsoft Teams, right? So this is our single source of truth. Everyone can have access to it, everyone from our kind of project, our team members. And then if I were a person who is outside, or I were a person who is kind of actually executing things, we will assign some kind of responsibilities on site, or kind of by discipline, where they will need to sign into the Power App, whether by mobile or by desktop, and they will need to input what was happening on the field, right? And on top of that, you will have the facility itself, the control hub, and you could watch in a live manner all the live time lapse, what was happening every 2 minutes. These pictures will get updated every 2 minutes, just to see how that things were evolving on site. So this was kind of the older sources, the suite of tools that people were having access throughout this collaboration hub. So the live reporting, this solution was comprised of these different elements. So we have these mounting walls. They were touch screens, so people can kind of also interact with these. If they were looking at the Power BI report, they could filter on the screen, they could slice the data, or they could also use the Power Apps and start adding information into the actual data work stream. And then on top of that, well, you will have access to the lifetime lapse pictures. So people will be looking at if they completed that concrete base, what's happening out there. If not, they will raise some questions, raise some concern. Why is not that activity completed? Because if I see that on my plan, I see that by today, I should have accomplished that. I'm not looking that on my time lapse. So what's happening? What are the issues there, right? So that was kind of the workflow we had. And then people have access throughout Teams to the reports. So this will be Microsoft Teams. And then our data, our scheduling data will come from P6. So you could see, as we were mentioning before, the traditional cycle will be, I'm the planner, I have access to P6, I will need to copy and paste that information to the spreadsheet, create my look-aheads, mark down what activities I've done, and try to communicate through Excel to my audience, right? In this case, we were just using P6 and directly exporting these XCRs and getting our Power BI reports to inform our end users what is the plan and actually what is being happening out there on the field. So that was coming through our Power BI reports embedded on Teams. So people have one single access to the truth. And then if you were someone outside on the field, you will be having access to this Power App that was customized, created specifically to input the actual data. And it will come up with a kind of a dashboard itself. So for the people who they don't have access to Microsoft Teams, or they are not looking at the Power BI report because they are just on the field supervising the execution, at least I can go through my phone and I can see how many milestones I have planned for today, how many I have completed, how many I am delayed, and then I can go to my schedule update, my milestone update, and I can start submitting my actual data. And that will be done through Power Apps. And at the same time, working behind the scenes, we will be using Microsoft SharePoint because we want to use SharePoint as our data repository. So we were using SharePoint lists to get all this data, all the data that is on my Power App to get stored on my SharePoint list. And then I will use Power Automate to trigger some of the data workflows from the Microsoft Forms data commentary, flying into my Power BI report. And again, also, if I want to PDF this Power BI report, I will do that through Power Automate. So no one needs to open anything or clicking anything. It will just be forwarded to everyone automatically. So that was kind of the environment we were using, combining all the different tools we can find in the Microsoft Power Platform to work all together. So if we just kind of deep dive into the Power App, what we were able to customize and create to fit our needs, this will be kind of the screen people on the field will be looking at. So they will have the total number of activities or the total number of activities planned for this possession. They will see how many, this is kind of a definition for us really, what was strategic, what was tactical, and they will see what was completed and what was planned at any point in time. And this will be actualizing and updating as the clock goes on. So at 2 p.m., I will have a number of planned strategic milestones, and I will need to see if I have achieved those on time. And then we had different levels of reporting. So that's kind of how we managed to validate that data workflow. So there were people on site responsible of the bronze control, and that was by discipline level. So generally the discipline lead, they will be responsible to input that actual data. And at the silver control, some other people will have the responsibility to validate, to check that data, validate that, check if that corresponds to what they are looking at on the time-lapse pictures. And if everything seems to be okay, they will say go, and that data will just continue its workflow. And finally, the goal control, that it was more for the project manager and the project directors level, and how they will escalate that into them. And that will be the final submission against our sponsor or the train operators that they want to see what was happening. So then we have the access through buttons to schedule updates, milestone updates, entry to service. And if I will click something, just to give an example, I will click here on the milestone update, I will have something like this. Within my app, I could see the list of the different activities I should be completing at this point in time, and they will be all organized by by deadline. So they will put me up front all the activities that are already delayed. So I have this milestone is already 3 hours delayed, but by the time I was checking the app, it was due to happen on August the 8th at 11 o'clock. But so far, no one has input the actual on this activity. So it's 3 hours delayed. So that heads up will be constantly changing according to that time passes, and then I will have then all the other activities that will go after that one. But that was still, even though we had some filters there, so I can say, just show me all activities should be finalized by this day. I could filter that, or activity by status, by discipline, by stage that we mentioned at the beginning. We have 10 stages for this. We also saw the opportunity to add more kind of data visualization for the people on site, because having all that on a phone, it could get potentially difficult to manage all that. If you have all that 1,500 activities over here, it can be a nightmare at some point. So we added on that Power App the ability to show look aheads or plan to date. So I just want to check, for example, my look ahead, and I will go into a different screen, something like this, and it will just show me what were the activities that were due in the last 12 hours. So I have 16 activities that were due, and most of them are completed, so I don't need to worry about them. They will tell me how many hours they were completed ahead of time or delayed. And it will also show me how many of them are already delayed and they haven't started or they haven't been accomplished so far. So I need to contact someone and say what is happening. And people will have also access to add comments. So I could click on this activity, and because I know I'm responsible of this one, I can start adding comments to say, okay, just this is delayed due to the resources or any other constraint. And the comments will be available for anyone who is reviewing this, and they will get an insight of why this activity is delayed. And then you have the look ahead for the next 12 hours, what are the activities and how many hours we have left in order to accomplish them. So that was pretty handy to have this look ahead view on our activities. It will simplify the way people will need to analyze the data instead of opening a P6, opening a PDF with 90 pages, So that was pretty handy. And then another functionality we added to the app was that plan to date. So some people were saying, okay, JC, I want to see from this 46 plan, which are those? I want to know which are these 46 plan, because I could be here, I could be saying I have completed 50, but if I haven't completed the 46 that I was due to complete, it doesn't matter if I complete 50 or 100, I need to complete the 46, So I want to have visibility of what are those. So that's why we added this another screen where the plan today. So I will say plan today by discipline or by stage, and it will list it out all the activities that by this time were due to be accomplished, and they will kind of organize them by status. So if this was delayed, this will pop up up front, so people know, okay, from the 35 I have here plan, I haven't accomplished this. This has started, but I haven't finished that, and probably I want to see what are the comments behind that, what are the reasons for that delay. So there was a lot of information in a simplified way to be consumed just through the app, without even thinking of the report. Just through the app was a lot of information, really, really useful information, insights for people to get the kind of to acknowledge, be aware of what is supposed to happen in the next 12 hours, and if something is delayed, why is delayed, So that's the way we use the Power App, and we build this app. If someone asks me how long did it take to build this custom app, it was literally 2 to 3 weeks that it took to create this from scratch, but obviously starting from a template that Power Apps puts available to you, And the outputs of this was the Power BI report. So all the data collected through the apps, automated through Power Automate, stored on SharePoint list, and using P6 with the XCR exports to feed into the baseline. If we need to change the baseline, we just will schedule that in P6, we'll export the new baseline, and that will be directly communicating into Power BI. So there wasn't need for any manual procedure in that process, The output will be something like this. So the live reporting we were kind of have that available 24/7 on Microsoft Teams, but at the same time, we were issuing every 4 hours automated PDF, because just people, they just love to see PDF, they have that access in a live format, but they will still rely on PDF because they want to get that freeze version of the report. So it will be something like this. It will contain some commentary, because we mentioned that before. We were using Microsoft Forms to get that, and Power Automate to make that fly direct into a Power BI report. And we will just narrating what was happening. We were adding some timestamps saying what is the status, is green at the moment, and some key highlights of what was happening in that shift by the reporting manager, and all that. The various disciplines, they will also provide their own highlights of the chip. We will have some summary information. So if we were tracking these strategic and tactical milestones that were really important for us to accomplish, we will be showing, for example, what was the current status. I have 73% planned in terms of strategic milestone. I have completed 73%, so my milestone index is 1, so that's positive. And actually, that was kind of it was really consistent that we were hitting this 1 milestones index, sometimes 0.98, 1.0. That was kind of the range. We were really crushing this in a very successful way. And again, if we were delayed in some sort of whether it is strategic or tactical, that was also important for us to know, okay, where is the delay, And you could find that through the app, as all the features I already show you in the Power Apps. But obviously for the project manager or for project directors, they are not going to get themselves into an app, so they want to see that in here. So the best way we found to make that happen was to show, again, these overall numbers by a stage. So I could go to stage number 1 and see, okay, stage number 1, I have 4 out of 4. So that's brilliant. We are doing well, right? But it could be at some point that stage number 3, for example, where 5 milestones planned, but I only achieved 2 so far. But I know now that I need to focus my attention on stage number 3, because I will get these high level numbers from the report for people to start asking questions and drive the conversation throughout our meetings, our reporting meetings. And as you were looking in the picture on my Microsoft Teams, we will have access. We will provide access to our Gantt charts on Power BI. So they will be coming off the back of P6 for the planned dates and off the back of Power Apps for the actual dates. So I will have baseline against actuals, and I will be looking at exactly what is happening right now, what was planned, and what is actually being delivered on site. I will have the high level numbers on top, and I could slice that by discipline. So I could click on track and will just show me the track elements, the track activities, or signaling, and so on. So this will be something we added some S-curves as well, just to show plan versus actuals in a high level format. And then we just added some pictures as well, because we had this time lapse going on every 5 minutes updating. So we want that to be shown as well in our Power BI report. So we just added those, and Power BI was pulling those out from a folder. So just rendering into the Power BI automatically. So no manual process involved in this one. So I just want to finalize by here, but just to go through, well, we had the time lapse, and this will be something that they would be available for people on the collaboration hub. So this is what they could see. Every 5 minutes they will get updated, and at the end of the day, you could get these time lapse videos. Finally, we have the 4D planning that we use for briefing before the construction works, and will be something like this. So everything was well planned ahead of time, so we can reassure people that they know what they need to do every single moment, and they are really kind of knowledgeable of what are the main challenges and issues that can come up, right? So stop that. And finally, this is what the control hub, the collaboration hub would look like. So it was a video we took from the 24 hours in the control room. And this is actually how people interact across the room. And they were standing up, reviewing the screens, checking the reporting, checking the app, looking at the time lapse. And that was really, really powerful for people to know exactly where we were at any single point. So that's everything from my side, guys. I hopefully that was insightful for you, and hope to see you soon.
Excellent. That's excellent, JC. Thank you. We've just got a few questions in the chat, if you don't mind just going through some of those. I've got a question here which says, is there a standard design for setting up the key performance indicators for any project controls Power BI dashboard? Could you name 5 KPIs or metrics of interest to stakeholders?
That's a really good question, and I don't think that there is kind of a standard way to measure that, how you will pick up these KPIs. I would say it will depend on your stakeholder requirements mostly. I think that the rule of thumb I follow is really analyze what your audience wants to see in your Power BI reports for project control matters, and start from there, from the expectations, what they want to see, rather than just say, okay, this is the standard, or this is the coolest thing I could think of, and I'm going to place them in a report, and then you need to consume that because that's the standard way. I will get a different approach. I will go to them, talk to them, and actually what we did, how we built that report, that the one I was showing us as an example, that came up from what they want to see. So we had several meetings beforehand, this possession blockade, having a conversation with the project managers, with the project directors, and saying, okay, what is the most important thing for you to know at any point? And for them was this kind of categories between strategic milestones, tactical milestones. If we achieve those, we are pretty sure that everything else will just fall, kind of just fall down in a proper way, you know? So for them was that what they want to see. We started and we built from there to get that look of report with the Gantt charts and all that. But this is mainly starting from the expectation requirement from your audience, and you will hit that success. Because bear in mind that people who consume the reports, they don't have much expertise on Power BI or, I don't know, data analytics. They just want to know what's happening out there. So it's from them that we need to get those requirements. You know, that will be my suggestion.
Okay. Another question. Can you confirm for me, was the P6 updated automatically from dates tracked and manually changed in the Power App?
So what we did is we built our baseline plan in P6, hour by hour program, and we used the XCR file to feed our Power BI report. And then everything that we were collecting as actual data was coming from Power App into that report. So the planner stopped doing phone calls, stopped doing kind of chasing people to get the updates. They will just open up the Power App. They could export that data into a spreadsheet that they want, and they will update the P6 schedule from there. I think that kind of the challenge we had was when we wanted to re-baseline, then it came back to the planner. We will reschedule the P6 and we will export the XCR and just drop that into a folder, and then our Power BI report will get updated. So probably the only manual part of it was to export that XCR file, and after that, just Power BI will take care of it.
Excellent. Another question. Did you look at integrating schedule and cost reporting?
Not for this one, but that's exactly what we are trying to get for the next possessions and blockades.
Excellent. Another question here. how did you approach the cultural change management piece? There's a lot of learning and a lot of change behaviors to promote. It looks like a big ask for the project team.
Definitely, and this happened so quickly that that was kind of one of the main concerns. Like people, they are not really used to follow all these, to kind of to use all these different tools, you know. And we try to do a lot of prep in that regard. We did a lot of training with people 1 month beforehand, and just to show them how to use the Power App, to show them where they're gonna find information on the only single source of truth in Microsoft Teams. A lot of testing. So one of the kind of a key, let's say, success was to do a smaller possession beforehand. It was a weekend possession 1 month before, and we tested the system, and we made people to use it, and they came back to us with feedback. And well, this is not working. I don't like this. This is too slow, and all that feedback was really, really valuable. So for this bigger milestone that was the 16-day blockade, we got all that in place, all that feedback, and we tried to enhance the solution. So that was a key factor for our success, I would say.
Okay, cool. Do you use a strong database when it's necessary, or only work with Access and SharePoint?
We are now using a database, a SQL database, and we are trying to get everything into this. At the time we were producing this, we didn't have access to that. SharePoint was our main data repository, but it has their own limitations. It's not kind of a database, so you cannot kind of get live information out of SharePoint. You will need to set up your auto refresh.
Yeah.
Whereas if you have something like a Dataverse, using Dataverse from Power Platform, or just using a SQL database, then the way you connect into Power BI is a more powerful way, because you can do direct queries.
Yeah,
that means that at any point a data entry changes, then that will get reflected directly immediately on Power BI report. On SharePoint, that doesn't happen, so you need to set up that auto refresh, and for us it was every half an hour. So that was kind of a limitation. You didn't have this live data on Power BI. It will only get updated every half an hour.
Yeah, excellent. And a question here: are there any similar products on the market?
Well, there are custom apps that you can purchase. Many good companies providing this, and there are apps that are already working with SQL database. For them, it's just direct connection to Power BI, and you can go that route, and that's actually what we have done. After this, we are purchasing now custom apps, and we have this third party will take care of this. But this was a massive, let's say, lesson learned for us to know what we exactly wanted to get out of these apps and products, you know, because if you go without having this knowledge and you just go to purchase, you might purchase something that is actually not right for you. It's not right for your needs, and just because you saw a sales pitch, you will get that, but it doesn't give you the right result, you know.
Excellent. And we'll just go with 2 more questions. I have one here. What will be the problem if we want to scale the solution?
That's a really good question. I think that you will face many challenges in that journey. One of them is the one I mentioned. In exactly this solution, you cannot have immediate live reporting. You will need to rely on this auto refresh every half an hour. That's a limitation. So you cannot scale that up unless you change your SharePoint by Dataverse, or you change that by a SQL database, so where you store your data, and that will require some licensing and things like that. But other than that, that database you are using, other than that, I think that this is completely scalable for any purpose. You could use this not only for blockades or possession, you could use that for your monthly reports, for everything you want to report on, as long as you make people, you make this accessible for people so they can input their actual data, and they also know what they are supposed to be delivering. So the plan things from P6 or any other tool.
Excellent. And one last question here, because obviously there are a lot of parties involved with the project, a lot of stakeholders. So who is it who owns all the data?
In our case, was our sponsor, Network Rail. So everything, all the SharePoint things, it had to be on their SharePoint, on their Office 365, just because they were kind of the owner of the data.
Excellent. Cool. I think that's all the questions we have in, unless anyone wants to come off mute and ask JC any questions directly. Now's your chance to come off mute now. Not sure we're going to get, people don't usually come off mute. Otherwise, I think it's been an excellent presentation, JC. I think it's great insight as to how you can really augment your product delivery with data, leveraging the Microsoft Power Platform, data collection all the way through to the BI reporting. It would be interesting to see kind of how you then leverage that data to inform the future projects, how you can start to kind of move into kind of predictive and prescriptive. I think is really key as well in the future. I think that's where the community wants to be, where a lot of organizations want to be. But I think this is excellent. The visibility you get, kind of the governance around the project, I think it's excellent. So thank you, JC, for the presentation. I think, guys, we've got a few more presentations coming up over the next coming weeks, and hopefully they'll be as good as these. So please do tune in again, follow JC. I think you're on LinkedIn as well, don't you, JC? And also the community as well, also on LinkedIn, Meetup, however you want to engage. The whole point is around collaboration, guys. So thank you for the evening. Thank you for attending, and we will catch you soon.